Stanley Milgrim's behavioral study of obedience, which occurred at Yale University in 1963, is one of the most famous and profound psychological and sociological studies ever conducted. To recap, this image shows the setup of his experiment. The subjects were told they were teachers, shown as T. They sat in front of an electric shock machine, hooked up behind the wall to the person on the other side, the learner. The teachers were instructed by the experimenter E to send a painful electric shock to the learner each time they answered a question incorrectly. The shocks went from slight shock to danger, severe shock. The results were mind-boggling. About 2/3 of the experimenters went all the way to 450 volts, the highest shock possible. At this point, the learner had stopped screaming in pain and was presumed to be unconscious or even dead, yet the teachers went on. Fortunately, the shocks weren't real, but what if they were? What does this experiment say about how far humans are willing to go to be obedient to their superiors? From day one, humans are taught to obey. Obey your parents, obey your teachers, obey the law. The first rule of kindergarten is to follow directions. Obeying authority figures and following directions is essential for societies to function. However, humans have shown us time and time again, both throughout history and experimentation, that they are willing to obey regardless of what is ethically and morally right. An obvious example of this is the Holocaust. In Germany in the 1930s and 1940s, 6 million Jews were killed by soldiers that, in the words of Milgrim, took part in the devil's work, and many did so out of a compelling sense of duty. Innocent people were killed as a result of others' willingness to obey immoral and unethical orders by authority figures. Obedience to authority figures is present in all types of jobs and situations. For example, one study proved that chief financial officers are more likely to illegally adjust earnings when it profits their chief executive officers than when it profits themselves. Another study showed that when nurses were told to give excessive amounts of a medicine they knew was not even on the hospital's approved list, almost everyone was prepared to do so before they were stopped. Sometimes these studies can be horrifying. We all think that if we were in Milgrim's study, or if we were in Germany under Hitler's rule, we would stand up to authority and not cause harm to others. However, it has been proven that more likely than not, we too would obey authority figures. Obedience to authority has long been researched. Conventional philosophers have an interesting, and in a way disturbing, take on obedience. Milgrim explains that conservative philosophers argue that the very fabric of society is threatened by disobedience, and even when the act prescribed by an authority is an evil one, it is better to carry out the act than to wrench at the structure of authority. While this may be concerning, this seems like a perspective conflict theorists would agree with. Conflict theorists believe conflicts are normal, necessary, and essential to cause social change. Those under the rule of authority figures often have a sense of false consciousness and are unaware of their own power to disobey.